point of that. So I just came from film, and I liked making things up and building sets or creating an environment and getting actors in front of it. So I came from that direction.
Right.
So it was really like a film still when I realized that, I wasn't going to be making motion pictures at that time. Not coming from the University of North Texas and living in Dallas.
Right.
Even then, if you went to a production company like the one that made the Benji movies that was in Dallas.
Right.
I walk in there with my films and asked to see, if there's anything I could do, be a runner, whatever, PA. And all they did is basically threw down a book in front of me that was about 6 inches thick and said, you can just add your name to this and maybe someday we'll call you for something. And then I was offered positions at Texas Instruments in their TV station, and to be the cinematographer, because when the news was still being made when I got out of college, in 60 millimeter film, for Vern Lundquist, the sports guy, and that I couldn't be in a TV.
So you didn't have the opportunity to be behind the camera at Bowling for Dollars?
No, it might have been fun, but no, I basically went through all of my college, or half of my college career and high school with no confidence in anything. But I always knew in the back of my mind I knew I was going to do something. I just didn't know what it was.
Right.
High school friends and I, we'd make these goofy short films, but it wasn't like we were film nerds. It was just like a car wreck or a Western or something goofy. It was just fun with the camera. But I didn't, the people, in 1967, 68, and 69 that were in the camera club were not the people that I were hung out with. We're all friends because it was a small high school. But once I got to college and tried business school, that was awful. Tried the psychology department. That was fun for a couple semesters. And then a friend of mine was taking radio, TV, and film classes. So I go, okay. And he goes, of course, I'm like terrified going in there thinking I can't do anything. And the minute I got behind a TV camera, I'm like, oh, this is easy.
Right.
And all the other students asked me to help or to shoot their productions or to be, we all kind of asked those that we thought could handle that position. And I was asked a lot, so I thought, okay. Right. So then I gained a lot of confidence, probably got even a little arrogant.
Right.
And then Texas Instruments hired me and a couple of friends as interns, and then they offered me a job. But I thought, that was like, Joe and the Volcano. By the time you get out of your car and get to the TV station, it's like, a 20-minute walk, and you don't see daylight till you leave. I said, I can't be in this, I wasn't interested in this mechanical situation all day long, every day.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard anyone ever reference Joe versus the Volcano as part of that, but I remember that scene with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan where they're in the office and there's this nasty green fluorescent light that's just buzzing.
Yes.
And they're just, I connected with it because I had one of those jobs at the time.
Yeah.
And it was just like...
It's like a scene that I will never forget because it's like, oh, that's what it was like in there. And, I liked the people. I probably would have, eventually been able to be a TV director at a real TV station. But I just couldn't do it there. The production we did while I was an intern was a educational video on how to use the very first calculator.
Oh,
and all it did is plus, minus, divide, and subtract. What was it called? The TRS-80. I can't even believe I remember that.
Yeah.
But I think that was it. It's like $200.
Right.
And it had little red LEDs.
Right.
And we had like a giant version. They hired an actor who came in and, showed how to
Wow.
do the thing. And that was the one I remember doing. We probably did a couple of others, but yeah, no, I mean, now I'd love to be in TV. I've written TV, I've written TV scripts and other things trying to do it like sitcoms. I mean, that's impossible. You can't get into that unless you're already in it with family or you're, somebody that says, I'm leaving home at 18 and you just go to LA and, I mean, the percentage of people is of course less than the percentage of artists that are successful. But
right.
And independent film, even later in life, like there came a point when I was, for lack of a better term, I was bored with making stage photographs. It was so easy, and I've always need some sort of like problem to work out with my work. I don't say that it's not a need necessarily, as I enjoy it.
Right.
It's an experimentation. It's like a working through problems, and with a motion picture, there's none of them that are easy.
Right.
You can make a 5-minute film and everything can go wrong at any time.
Right.
And so I enjoyed that. So I stopped making these making stage photographs in 1997.
Mm-hmm.
And after about 4 years of that, I wrote a full feature script. And it was actually a script about reality TV stars. This is what I have the letter that I wrote to myself.
Wow.
I mean, it's copyrighted and everything before reality TV came out. And it was like these reality TV stars. It was a reality TV show where people acted out classical sitcom scripts.
Interesting.
And then the first night they were on, the audience would vote whether they were good enough to come back the next week and do another episode. And they start out just like you do in film. You're an extra, you get $50 a day, so they get $50.
Right.
The next time they get something else, and they build up. Well, this one family that lived in the North Shore of Chicago became very famous as the Father Knows Best cast. So I wrote this script, and it was like $5 million. I had a producer that priced it out. It was like $5 million, and I'm like, well, come on, I'm not going to be able to do this. And so I rewrote it to all take place in one location with no camera movement, but cameras placed hidden all over this. It was like a funeral home or something. There was a situation that happened. And they're already famous, but it was after that. And the actors played to the cameras, but the cameras never had any movement. And we did a script reading with 11 actors, the Dallas Theater Center, and had people offer money. And I felt so uncomfortable about taking people's money. I realized I'm not made for making motion pictures, because if you're not happy with people giving you money, you can't do it.
Right.
So I only made one film after that, and it was a 9.5-hour real-time drive from here to Santa Fe, and it was just me in the car with 3 cameras.
That would be big in Norway. Have you heard about that?
No.
The big rage in Norway is what they refer to as, they have a term for it, but basically slow television.
Oh, I've heard of slow television.
Right. And so, a 10-hour train ride from like Oslo to this other point, a 3-day journey on a cruise ship up this particular part of Norway. Oh, and it's just, they have cameras on the shore. They have there's kind of changed the camera angles, but it's all live.
Wow.
But they also tape it. And Netflix actually has some of these where if you were so inclined to watch, 72 hours of programming.
Right. Well, you all have to, all those have to reference Andy Warhol, the Sleep movie.
Right.
For motion pictures. But mine was, it showed in Fort Worth, the Fort Worth Modern, and it ended up being 5 DVDs. And at the time, I knew the curator at the LA County Museum. They had collected work, and we'd become, we kept in touch all the time. And, so I was in LA, and I took these. He goes, "What have you been up to?" And I said, "Well, I did this movie, and I filmed the drive from Dallas to Santa Fe. And he looked at me and he goes, why? He goes, I know that drive, it's great. He goes, I really enjoy it. He goes, but why would you do it? And of course my answer was going to be a little snarky going, well, I'm an artist, this is what I do.
Right.
That's what I felt like doing. But I did, and I said, it was just something, I enjoyed it. I can make it surreal. It felt at times, you just kind of get dreamy about it. And so I said, look, here, you got a TV right here in your office, right. DVD player, I'll leave you these DVDs.
Right.
So about 3 weeks later, I got a phone call, and he said, I hate you. I can't stop watching it. And he hung up. And that was the end of that conversation. And then several weeks later, maybe even a couple of months later, he calls and he goes, you know what, I love it. He goes, how much is it? And I said, well, I'll get you my dealer. I quoted a price. And he goes, okay, I'll get back to you. And then he died of lung cancer. And so when the LA County Museum contacted me to do, they were going to do a memorial to him.
Right.
And I said, they asked, and I said, you know what, I want you to have this movie because, he asked for it, and this is the proper thing for me to do. So
right.
That's the only place it exists.
Yeah, and it seems like that that sort of work.
Robert Sabiziak, what's his name? Robert Sabiziak.
Yeah. It seems like that, it would be interesting in so many levels, and it would only get more interesting as it aged, right? Because, 20, 30 years from now, it's going to have a totally different quality because it's going to have
it's different.
Right, because it's like this time capsule sort of quality, right?
Well, I started out at the last neighborhood we lived in, Middleton. On Middleton's the name of the street,
right?
And you can sort of make a circle of the street because I did a movie called Middleton.
Yeah, I watched that yesterday.
Okay. Oh, thanks. Yeah. And if you went around it now, probably only 20% of the houses are the same.
Right.
It's a completely different neighborhood. And of course, Santa Fe is built up, all the drive. From here to, Amarillo's probably hadn't changed a whole lot.
Right.
But, the interesting thing that I've mentioned this to people before, and I think other artists and other, especially photographers and filmmakers, realize this. Something comes off of you onto your film. Mm-hmm. It's really not definable. And that happens with art. That happens with painting. If you're making a painting and you're only choosing the imagery just based on something you saw but you don't have any emotional connection to, that's how it comes across.
Right.
But I did the first take one of this 9.5-hour movie with my comedian assistant and my daughter, who they were close in age. And I said, okay, well, first of all, we had to rent a van because I shattered my windshield trying to put that suction thing on there.
Right.
And I had to leave Becky a car, so we couldn't take her car.
Right.
And so I said, okay, we're not going to talk, okay? We're not going to play music because I don't want anything but road sound on the film. Well, that lasted till about 3 miles away. So I said, okay, fine, I'll just fake the sound. But when we got back and I'm looking at the footage, it had none of the sort of dreamy feel that I had when I was alone. And I showed it to a collector who sort of helped fund it a little bit. And he had the same reaction. So on take 2, did it completely by myself. I pulled over every 55 minutes and turned one camera off, changed the tape in one, and then, did so that I had a fresh film. And it worked. It had this exact feel that I wanted. It had that sort of air quality and dream. And so that's when I really realized it.
Is the finished product color or black and white?
It's color.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's actually things that go on inside it. On I guess Final Cut Pro is what it was. You could, I would draw like on the back of a truck that looked like a face. I would